Oh, there you are. I've been waiting for you. Today's adventure takes us to Marshall Cemetery here in New Lenox, Illinois. Now this cemetery is a family cemetery. I'm looking this way because I'm in a street 45 miles an hour, so I don't want to get hit. This cemetery goes back to the 1830s. It is started by the Marshall family, and there's many generations of Marshall family currently buried here. So let's go check this cemetery out before I get hit by a car. So come along as we check out Marshall Cemetery. All right, we will go in through the front gate. Since this lock is actually not doing a darn thing. So we come up to the pillar here. Marshall Cemetery established in 1839 in New Lenox Township. That's exactly where we are. I wanted to get in here today because we're supposed to have a snowstorm in a couple of days, and that would definitely put a damper on getting in here and exploring. A little history on this cemetery straight away. Chester and Parmelia Marshall came to this area in about 1833 from New York with their children Roland and George and their daughter Electra Ann. And Chester was said to be a tall, large, noble-looking man. He served as a deacon in the local Baptist church. And he also served as a veteran of the War of 1812. I'm looking at this. Wow. We have a large stone structure here. Appears to be a tomb of some sort. However, it's about 4 feet high, and I would say 5 feet wide. And we have a large stone top, but there are no plaques or markings on this to identify who could possibly be buried there, if it is in fact a tomb. I mean, I assume it is. We are in a cemetery, so that would make sense. Well, that's interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's go find the Marshalls, and I'll give you a little more of their history. So we walk here, of course. There are many Civil War soldiers in this small family cemetery. It's hard to tell. It looks like WL. Very hard to tell. Very old marker there. Very old marker. There's an old marker over here as well. And you can see somebody's already been walking through this snow. Beautiful old marker there. So going back to the Marshall family, whose land this was and who started this cemetery. So their younger son, George, he actually became a secretary for the Anti-Slavery Society, but he would leave for California in 1889 as part of the gold rush. And fortunately, George did hit pay dirt. Unfortunately, as George was returning, he was robbed of his gold. He was on a ship in the Pacific Ocean, and he was thrown overboard and died in the Pacific Ocean. And here we have the Marshall family stone. And we have the Marshall generations here. Josiah, now I don't know if he ever came to the U.S. I don't believe so. And Kezia, not the U.S. necessarily, but to New Lenox. But his son Chester and Parmelia is the one who have come here. They were the pioneers. They were the ones that settled here, and that's the ones whose cemetery is in their name. And there's George there. You see, buried in the Pacific Ocean, and he was married to Margaret. Interesting. Let's see if there's anything else on this monument. Nothing on the back side of it. Oh, we have some more information here. So George, before he left for the gold rush, did have a bunch of children, 8 children to be exact. And we have Albert there. Now Albert, I believe, became a judge in Will County. We have Ralph, Sarah, Edwin, Griffin, Mary, George, and Frederick. So he had quite a family, and unfortunately, he died in 1850, and his wife Margaret was left to raise the family. And here we are approaching a second Marshall monument. We see Chester and Parmelia again. We saw them on the last monument. And there's their son Roland Marshall. Belinda was his wife, and Chester Marshall was Roland's son, and his wife Clara. So it looks like Chester and Parmelia are on several monuments in this cemetery. Let's see if we can find any other Marshalls in here, and then we'll just do a general exploration of this cemetery. So, as I alluded to earlier, Albert Marshall, he became a Will County judge. That's the county we are currently in. And let me see if he's over here. Here we are, right here. Judge A.O. Marshall. He was also in the Civil War. He was the Company A, 33rd Illinois Regiment, and a Will County judge. Next to him is Captain R.W. Marshall, and that's Ralph Marshall. So he was in 3 different regiments in the Civil War. And he actually became a sheriff in Will County in later years after the war. And here's his wife, Mary, here. Interesting. And there was an Edwin Marshall, another brother, who was also in the Civil War. And he was in the same company as Ralph. And I don't know if his tombstone is in here or not. And here's Edna and Edward. Now this must be the 3rd or 4th generation of Marshalls that are in this cemetery. Very interesting. A lot of family history there. Here we have several more Marshalls. Mary Jane, Jesse Marshall. He was the children of Griffin Marshall, who was one of George's kids. He was a child. He's one of the children. Margaret, he's a wife of George Marshall. And here we see another Marshall monument here. Looks like Mary. Hard to kind of make that out. It's actually really good lighting right now for it, but just a little hard for me to make that out through the camera. And here's Griffin Marshall. So this is the other Marshall son. I don't know if I don't think he went into the Civil War. I think he was a little too young for that at that point. But his brothers did. And Lucy here, his wife. Coming up here to, this one's George Lawfer, World War II, U.S. Navy. So let me get this debris off of his stone. Clean that up for him. There you go, George. Thank you for your service. Then we have some McGovneys over here, and that's the other prominent family that's in this cemetery that I want to talk about a little bit. Ona McGovney right there. So the McGovneys were another pioneering family that came here shortly after the Marshalls. And John McGovney and his wife Nancy, along with their 5 children, came here. We have the brown tombstone there. Came here in October of 1831. There was a lot of settlers coming into this area in the early 1830s, mid-1830s. And the reason why is because of an act that President Andrew Jackson passed in 1830 called the Indian Removal Act. And what that did was moved Indians off of this land to the west and to the west of the Mississippi River. There's a Marshall there. I see wife of something or other. It's pretty hard to tell. So that cleared the path for settlers to come to Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and areas east of the Mississippi. Essentially, the Indians were booted off their land and forced off, and then the settlers took over. This is an interesting one. We have Alva, son of C and K Crandell, 16 years old. Let me see if there's anything on the back side of this one. There is. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to read with the sun in my face and this in the shade. The name is Heinrichsen. Interesting monument. And here we are with the McGovneys here. Said John and Nancy came here with their 5 children. And we can see here we've got William, born 1851, Matilda, 1829, Ozias, 1824, Emily, 1857. And we have another Emily McGovney here with Wilson McGovney. Interesting. Someone has built a box and hung it up in a tree about 12 feet off the ground. I'm not sure why somebody would do that or what the purpose of that is, but interesting. Unless that was built when the tree was much younger and it was at ground level, and then it just grew and raised itself up as the tree grew. I wanted to look at this large marker over here, this tombstone, I should say, because this is one of those traditional, thick, tall, hardy tombstones that you would associate with being very old. I see what appears to be Anne, and I'm trying to read it through the camera now. See, died. It's hard for me to read still. Hard for me to read. I don't know if you can make out that date and death. It looks like this was broken at one time. As a matter of fact, you can see a line going through there where it was repaired. That's nice. These are pretty much look to be unreadable. I see something that looks like Parker, maybe 1864 it looks like. Another one here that appears to be, and it's frozen into the ground. And an old one here that I'm assuming is an infant, because it looks like there's a lamb inscribed on that tombstone. I like these older stones. Looks like an H-A-R-P, Harper. That's what that looks like. First name, I'm not sure. Nice old tombstone, however. As we check out a few more old tombstones here. This one is of William Jones, who died in 1891. It's 63 years old, it looks like. Here's some here that, yeah, that's not going to be read. It's very old. Unable to make out the names on that. And I assume this one as well would not be readable. Unfortunately, unable to make out those names either. Hopefully those were documented before that became unreadable. I'm assuming that is part of the Jones family, as the Jones monument is right here. Clarissa Jones in 1909. Ellis, 1859, and Charles, 1877. I'd wanted to walk to the far I'd wanted to walk to the far east part of this cemetery because this is the more recent burials. There aren't that many burials in this cemetery, but there are some. And I especially thought this tombstone here was very interesting because it's Hammer is the name, and it has like the Monster Energy logo. As a matter of fact, it has Monster Energy can there. He knows wings just ain't our thing, so up there they drive pickup trucks, and he's got a Monster Energy can. Apparently this person liked Monster Energy. What a nice, beautiful tombstone. Robert Hammer, 1992 to 2013. Looks like he was in the pickup trucks and into Monster Energy. And I will say this, Monster Energy is one of the worst things you can probably drink. And I don't usually give my opinions on this channel, but a friend of mine died because he used to drink a lot of energy drinks, and it screwed up his heart, and he died in his sleep because of it. So they are not good for you at all. Here's Thomas, 1940, 2016, U.S. Navy. Thank you for your service, sir. A lot of benches around here, which are very nice. Got an old bench over here. A couple old benches over here. I can't see what's under the snow here as far as markers go. Got a little angel there. And there's definitely a marker there as well. Very, very nice. Okay, everybody, that's going to do it for Marshall Cemetery. I hope you enjoyed the walk through this pioneer cemetery. A lot of history here for this small, remote cemetery. But we have mayors, we have judges, a lot of Civil War soldiers, War of 1812. A lot of history in this cemetery. A lot of stories could be told from the people in this cemetery. So thank you for watching. And of course, as always, keep exploring.